So shall we begin then? Okay, Amal and Ashish, we were dealing with evolution of psychology, and we discussed about three main schools of psychology, which were the structuralism, functionalism, and gestalt psychology. Now, what did we learn in structuralism, Meghna?
Or the structure of the mind.
Structure of the
Mind.
structure of the mind. Okay, that was the focus of structuralism. Then functionalism.
We define the psychology and uses adaptation and uses of human mind.
Adaptational functions of
our mind and body.
Okay, mind and behavior. Okay, enough. Now gestalt psychology.
It's a means form and shape and the environment we are in, how
Perceptual experiences. That was the focus of gestalt psychology. Whole is greater than
the sum of
its parts. Okay. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now the next one is behaviorism. So we saw structuralism, functionalism, and gestalt psychology. Now we are going to deal with behaviorism. So behaviorism is another school of thought of psychology. It is a school of thought that emphasizes objectivity, observable behavioral responses, learning, and environmental determinants. In this, in structuralism, we focused on the building blocks or the structure of the mind. In functionalism, we focused on the functions of the mind. What and how do the mind function? Then in gestalt psychology, we saw about the perceptual experiences. I talked about what perception is and what the perceptual experiences. So perceptual experiences and the holistic view, not the single elements as in structuralism, but the whole perceived object is of importance in gestalt psychology. And keeping away all these factors, another school of thought came, that is behaviorism. Behaviorism focus on objectivity, observable behavioral responses, learning, and environmental determinants. Just like the way I told you, when you hear of gestalt psychology, you have to remember the statement, whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Similarly, when you hear behaviorism, you have to suddenly go to this particular thing, that is behavioral responses, behaviors, and observable responses. Observable responses means last class we learnt about stimulus and responses, right? And covert and overt behaviors. Overt are the ones which are observable in nature, right? Which can be observed or evaluated by any other outsider. So observable responses are of focus to behaviorism. Here, John Watson, B.F. Skinner are two main people who contributed to behaviorism. And Watson rejected the ideas of mind and consciousness as subject matters of psychology. So John Watson was the one who began to give initial contributions into this field, that is behaviorism. And he rejected the ideas of mind and consciousness as subject matters of psychology. So he rejected the term mind, or he rejected something which is known as consciousness. But structuralists are all focused on the building blocks of the mind, or functionalists focused on the functions of the mind. But he rejected mind as such. Okay, he just wanted to focus on the behavioral part of psychology. And because mind is not observable, also because introspection is subjective. Why did Watson reject mind and consciousness? It is because mind is not observable. So he was the one who just supported the idea that psychology can be studied only based on what is observable. That is the behavioral responses. Objectivity mattered to him. We earlier told that experiences and introspection especially is very subjective in nature. He wanted objectivity, so he rejected mind as well as he rejected introspection. Introspection is subjective in nature. The person experiencing certain processes or phenomena, he himself explains what he is going through. That is what we see in introspection. But introspection was very subjective, and the another person or any outsider coming from the environmental surroundings of the current person, they can't observe it nor can't they evaluate it properly. That is why Watson rejected mind as well as introspection. Now, he argued that scientific psychology must focus on what is observable and verifiable. So, only by observing what is happening, only by objectively observing what is happening, objectively observing the responses to stimuli, can we really verify them. And that is what should be the focus of scientific psychology. That's what John Watson said in Behaviorism. Okay. He defined psychology as a study of behavior or responses. Responses means general responses to stimuli, which can be measured and studied objectively. And these people who follow behaviorism are known as behaviorists. So, see this picture. Stimulus comes and then mental processes, everything happens and we give a response. So, where does stimulus comes from? It can come from an internal environment or an external environment. So we are in constant interaction with the environment, right? This behaviorism also gives certain importance to the environment around us. It is from there that many of the stimuli comes. So behaviorist also gives an importance to the interaction between the stimulus and responses. The environment and behaviors. Understood? Note that the environment and behavior, the interaction between this environment and behavior is also a focus in behaviorism. We have a whole chapter named learning, and in that we'll focus more about behaviorism. Learning comes under this school of psychology, which is known as behaviorism. Okay, so this is the one after Gestalt psychology. Next, what comes is called the psychodynamic perspective. In our textbook, it is given as psychoanalysis because I'll explain that. Before that, psychodynamic perspective as a whole. Note down that name, psychodynamic perspective. This perspective was initiated by someone known as Sigmund Freud. You will hear this name all throughout the course because last class I told that Wilhelm Wundt is considered as the father of psychology, father of experimental psychology. Sigmund Freud is one among the most prominent people who have contributed to the field of psychology. It is his theoretical concept has laid the foundation for most of the theories in psychology. Okay, so you will have to remember this name. You will have to learn all these names by heart anyway. And the method that he used to analyze people or to treat mental disorders, to treat abnormalities, was something known as psychoanalysis. Psychoanalysis is what is given in our textbook, but this perspective as a whole is known as psychodynamic perspective. Psychoanalysis is one method of psychotherapy, a form of therapy that we use in psychology, where the therapist attempts to bring repressed unconscious material into consciousness. So there is something known as conscious, unconscious, subconscious, preconscious. Conscious is something that we are currently aware of. You are aware that you are breathing now. You are aware that you are sitting in front of your electronic gadgets like computer or maybe laptop or mobile phone. You're aware of that. You're alert about it. You know that you're attending a class. You are writing down your lecture notes. You're hearing my voice. You're conscious about it. You're aware about it. So that comes under the consciousness. Unconsciousness comes under something that you are not currently aware of. You don't know something. You don't know what is inside that unconscious part. That is the hidden part in you. But there is something in there, but you're not aware at the current moment. Understood? And what the therapist or the psychologist tries to do in psychoanalysis is that they try to bring the unconscious into the consciousness. So they try to make the person aware about his or her unconscious desires, wishes, fears, and all. Repressed unconscious material means restraining from or preventing from becoming conscious. So each and every material in the unconscious part will be repressed in nature. Means such material they don't want to pop up into the consciousness. They will just hide under the under the unconscious part. They just want to be there. They don't want to come out. So they are repressed in nature. They prevent from themselves from becoming conscious. And the psychologist's duty is to bring this unconscious material, this repressed unconscious material into the conscious part. Understood? So psychoanalysis, this is a method. The way of bringing the unconscious material into the conscious one is the method used, and that method is called psychoanalysis. But the field, the school or the perspective is known as psychodynamic perspective. The psychodynamic perspective was initiated by Sigmund Freud, but there are different other people, other followers who agreed with Sigmund Freud's theory and gave some other theoretical concepts into the psychodynamic perspective. By psychoanalysis as such was put forward by Sigmund Freud alone. Okay. It is now used to understand and cure psychological disorders. In early days as well as now, there are psychologists who follow the psychodynamic perspective, who use psychoanalysis method in order to understand and cure different psychological disorders or mental disorders. Okay. Now, it viewed human beings as motivated by unconscious desire for gratification of pleasure-seeking desires. So, I told about the unconscious desires, wishes, and fears that is repressed inside the unconscious part of a mind. Yes. In that, the unconscious material is mostly of pleasure-seeking nature. And pleasure-seeking nature, specifically sexual pleasure. That is what Sigmund Freud's theory says. Okay, I'll show you a diagram. Can you see the diagram? Yes?
Can you zoom it a bit?
Okay, I'll put it on presentation view. Can you see?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so here we have 3 levels. This whole figure is known as the mental iceberg. This is the iceberg analogy. Analogy means we find similarities to something. Yes. So we are comparing our states of consciousness or our mind to this particular iceberg. And the top part you can see the conscious level, and the second one is subconscious level. Then we see the unconscious level. And this is above sea level. The conscious level is above the sea level, and they are the thoughts and perceptions that you have right now. Okay, Amal, what all things are you aware of right now? Amal, can you hear me? Yes. Yes. What all things are you aware right now when you sit in? Yes, tell me.
Ma'am, I am aware that I am sitting class.
Yes.
Uh,
You're aware that I asked you a question. You're aware that you're answering me. Yes. You're aware that you're seeing me. Yes. You're aware that you're attending to the class. You're aware that you're seeing this diagram. All these things comes under the conscious level. The consciousness is the part above the sea level. Okay. And the next level, that is partially visible. When we see from the a sea, when we are in a boat nearby this iceberg, we can see a translucent part of this. That is, it is not clearly fully visible, but we can see something. Yes, that comes under subconscious level. These are the memories or the stored knowledge you have. Okay, let me ask you a question. Do you remember any of your friends from your third standard? Yes, anybody?
Yes, ma'am.
What is his or her name?
And Teresa.
And Teresa. Okay. So before I asked you that question, did you even think of Aunt Teresa?
No.
No. But when I asked you that question, you could search from your memory and you could tell me that. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
That is what happens in subconscious level. We can acquire it anytime that we want. The memory that is stored in a long-term memory or maybe short-term memory, this comes under the subconscious level. Okay. Then the last part, that is the deepest part, which is in the deep sea, which is hidden under the deep sea, is known as the unconscious level. Here we can't see what is inside, we can't retrieve what is inside consciously. But through psychotherapy, through psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud says that we can make that into or bring that into the conscious level. So we'll see what comes under the unconscious level. We have the fears, the violent motives, the unacceptable sexual desires, irrational wishes, immoral urges, shameful experiences, selfish needs. So if you have had a very shocking experiences in your childhood, you have gone through very shameful experience, very much shameful experiences in your childhood, but now you're not aware of it, you don't even remember about it, but there is a part of it or you have the memories of it hidden in your unconscious level. That is what Sigmund Freud has tried to explain through this diagram. Understood? This diagram is not there. It is not, I mean, this such a big elaborate explanation is not required for our first chapter, but this diagram helps to understand this topic much more easier. Okay, that's why I explained. Hopefully in our coming chapters, we'll learn more about psychodynamics and psychoanalysis. So is this diagram clear to you all?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Amal, please switch on your video. Okay. That is all about psychodynamics and psychoanalysis. Now, next comes humanistic perspective. Okay. Humanistic perspective, the main proponents are, or the people who contributed a lot to this field are Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow. And they have separate theories which we'll learn in other chapters. And here, it is an approach to psychology that emphasizes the person or the self and personal growth and development. More positive view of human nature. In psychodynamic perspective, we told about the fears, the shameful experiences, the violent behaviors, the violent motives of people, sexual desires and all. A psychodynamic viewpoint of human nature, it is a bit negative. Okay, they try to explain human nature in a very negative manner. They are not focusing much about what we have. They focus on what we are very bad at, like the like the ones I said, the shameful experiences, the violent behaviors, the negative feelings that we had, the negative experiences that we had in childhood, all that is focused in psychodynamic view. But in humanistic perspective, human nature is considered as positive in humanistic perspective. Here, the emphasis is on the person himself or the herself or the self of the person, the personal growth and development of the person. That is what is focused in humanistic perspective. And it emphasizes the free will of human beings and the natural striving to grow and unfold their inner unfold their inner potential. So, according to this humanistic perspective, each and every individual has an inner potential, and using this inner potential, he or she can reach much heights. They can strive for personal growth, for personal development. They have the potential in themselves and they have to use it to reach greater heights. That is what is discussed in humanistic perspective. Now, they argue that behaviorism undermines human freedom and dignity and takes a mechanistic view of human nature. So, in behaviorism, we told whenever stimulus comes, we respond to that stimuli. Okay, that is something of a mechanistic nature. Like we give something. Have you seen the machines where we put a penny and we get a chocolate? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, similarly, that is somewhat an analogy or a similarity to what the behaviorism says. If there is a stimulus, we respond to the stimulus. And that response is, if they are observable, we have to observe, we have to evaluate, and that is studied in psychology. That is what behaviorism says. And humanistic perspective denied that fact. Humanistic perspective criticized behaviorism. They criticized behaviorism in that fact that the behaviorism tries to explain human psychology or human behavior in a mechanistic view, in a mechanistic nature. So these people, they didn't like that, and they tried to undermine or disagree to the behaviorism. Understood? Understood?
In a mechanistic view means?
Sorry?
In a mechanistic view means?
Mechanistic view means just like a machine. See, I told you about the penny and the chocolate that we get. Similarly, when we apply, when we are applied by a stimulus, we respond. That is how it happens in behaviorism, right? The stimulus response reaction, the observable behaviors, right? Understood? That is why it is called mechanistic view. Mechanistic, the word means something similar to a machine. Okay? Something that runs by technology. And the behaviorism views the human nature as mechanistic, just like a machine. When we get a stimulus, we respond. That view, these humanistic perspective, the humanists, the people who follow humanistic perspective, they didn't like that mechanistic view which was put forward by behaviorists. So they disagreed to that. Understood? Okay. Now, before we begin the cognitive perspective, imagine at least in some point of life or maybe in future, we might have felt or we may feel that life has become a bit boring. There is nothing new happening. It is so monotonous. I feel that it is very bland. It is very boring. So when such people may also consult a psychologist for help, asking for help. What the person who follows humanistic perspective will do is, they try to see what potentials he or she already have. Okay. And after that, what is missing? What is missing from their life, in the sense, are they missing their relationships, their friends, or do they want to go for a trip? Do they want to travel a lot? Is that what they want? So they try to search what is good for them They already consider them the human nature as positive. They try to search for the strengths of people, the positives of people, and try to lead them to a more positive way or more positive path so that they can use their own potential, their inner potential in achieving certain heights. That is what is done in humanistic perspective. Got that? Okay. In cognitive perspective, this is the last one, and cognitive psychology is something which is relatively new as compared to the other schools of psychology. In this perspective, it is a combined aspect from both Gestalt and Structuralism. Gestalt was about the holistic view, or about the form or shape or the perceptions that we have, the whole perception, not only the single elements or units, but the whole perspective is important. That is important in Gestalt psychology. In Structuralism, we focused on the small elements or the structures of mind. So cognitive perspective was a mix of both of these. The important personality here is Ulrich Neisser. He was the one who gave the initial contributions to the revolution that happened in cognitive psychology. Now, cognition is the process, note down this definition. Cognition is the process of knowing, which involves thinking, understanding, perceiving, memorizing, problem solving, etc. Any aspect of our mental life or our mental process comes under the term cognition. Okay. Some view human mind as an information processing system like the computer. In a computer, what happens is we want to copy some information. So the computer receives the information. The computer processes the information. The computer transforms it into some other form. Then what the computer stores it. And next day or after a few days, maybe after some months or years, we want to retrieve that. So we can retrieve it from the computer memory. That's what happens in the computer system. Similarly, the human mind is compared to the computer system where information processing happens accordingly. In human memory, we have a chapter on human memory. In that, we learn about the information processing system where information is encoded. Encoded means it is converted into some type of code. It is stored, and it is retrieved whenever we want. Just as Aishwarya told about her third standard friend. What she did is she had already encoded and stored her name. What was her name? And
Teresa.
Aunt Teresa. Yeah, she has already met Aunt Teresa. She has already encoded her name, her details and all. And she has already stored it in her long-term memory. That's why she could retrieve it when I asked her about that. Understood? Yes? Okay. So, such information processing model is of importance in cognitive perspective, which is in which we compare human mind or human memory to the computer system. Then, modern cognitive psychology views human beings as actively constructing their minds through their exploration into the physical and social world. What is constructivism? People construct their own understanding and knowledge of the world through experiencing things and reflecting on these experiences. Who is Ashish? Ashish, tell me a place where you never have been, but you always wanted to go. Yes, Ashish, can you hear me?
Bangalore.
Bangalore. You have never been to Bangalore? Ashish. Can you hear me, Ashish? Yes. Answer me. I can't hear you. I think he has some connectivity issues again. Okay. Let it be Bangalore. So, what are your expectations about Bangalore? Again, I think he can't hear me. Okay, let it be. So, whatever place, everybody think of a place where you never have been and you want to go. You so badly wanted to go. Okay. Thought about it? Yes, thumbs up. Okay. So, you already have some expectations. You might have seen pictures of the place. You might have thought about the food over there. You might have thought about the culture, the traditions, the type of costume they wear, the kind of festivals. Certain places have certain festivals that are specific or indigenous to that area. Or maybe you have browsed in Instagram about the place and you so badly wanted to go. And imagine one day you have already reached there. Okay? Imagine that you have already reached that place. Elvina's face is brightening so much. Where do you want to go? I'm so curious to know.
Paris.
Paris. That's one of my favorite places. Okay, fine. Yes, I lost track. Paris made me think of something else. Okay, now come back to cognitive psychology. Okay, we were studying about constructivism, right? We already have constructed some experiences about or some or the other images, some or the other information about our favorite places already by browsing, by reading, by asking to certain people. Yes, we all have done that, right? Even I have done that. Similarly, when you reach that place, maybe your viewpoint might completely change. You might see different things there. You might add different information to the already existing information in your mind. Yes, so you're constructing your mind. Understood? You already, who was the one? Grishma. Grishma, are you all right now?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Can you speak?
Yes.
Okay. Where did you want to go?
I didn't know you.
I think she's having some network issue. Okay, okay. It's okay. Leave it. Elvina, can you help me out? What images did you have of Paris earlier?
I like to visit Paris.
Eiffel Tower.
It's Eiffel Tower.
Eiffel Tower. And then?
And not only Paris, I also like to discover more and more places.
Okay. Okay. So Eiffel Tower was a highlight there. And she will be having an image of Eiffel Tower in her mind. Okay. And when she really reaches Paris, I hope and pray that you do one day. When she reaches there, she might see something different. Maybe Eiffel Tower she might understand then that Eiffel Tower is so huge. It is so beautiful. Yes. So she adds on to the information. She actively constructs more and more information to the already existing knowledge that she had. That is what we do in cognitive psychology. Okay? Yes, that is what we saw in constructivism. We actively construct information, we add information, and if we think that some of the information that we already had in our minds are wrong, then we delete that information. Understood? That is known as constructivism, and that is dealt with in cognitive psychology. And there are two examples given in your textbooks about Piaget's theory and Vygotsky's theory, which we'll learn in the future. They have just mentioned the theory's name. Both of them are about human development, how we develop our cognition. In Piaget's theory, we have certain stages where the human development takes place in terms of the cognition. And Vygotsky's theory, it's based on the social and cultural process, how they influence our cognitive developments. So I hope that is clear. We dealt with the evolution of psychology. This is more of a Western origin. We'll continue in the other classes about the development of psychology or evolution of psychology in India. So which were the schools of psychology that we talked about? Who can tell me? Amal, can you tell me?
Ma'am,
Any three. Give me any three.
ma'am, humanistic perspective.
Humanistic perspective. Please be louder, dear.
Yes, ma'am.
Humanistic, then
Co cognitive.
cognitive perspective, then one more.
Psychodynamic perspective.
Psychodynamic perspective. Okay, next person. Meghna, tell me. Which was the first one we studied?
Structuralism,
Structuralism. Then
functionalism,
functionalism. Then
gestalt psychology,
gestalt psychology. And then we started the
behaviorism.
behaviors. Okay. So structuralism, functionalism, gestalt psychology. Then we have behaviorism, psychodynamic perspective, humanistic perspective, and cognitive perspective. That is evolution of psychology. Done for the day. Yeah, any doubts? Doubts, any doubts? No? Shall we wind up then? Yes? Okay, I hope tomorrow you're having a leave, right? Okay, so happy holidays. See you all then. Okay, bye. Thank you.